Welcome back to the kitchen, everybody. So this is part 2 on our mini-series on salad. Last week we've covered the simple salad. I told you there was 3 types of French salad. The simple one, the rice salad that we're going to see today, and the salade composée, which is going to be for our next video. On my last video, I also mentioned it was good to have a reference guide, such as the Guide Culinaire from Escoffier. This is the French version. Anytime you're doing something like this, a bit technical, that can be explained by Escoffier. But I wanted to go a little step further. So what I've done, since last week, I've ordered the English version, the latest English version from the Guide Culinaire. I've compared the two, and to my surprise, it is really word for word the exact translation of the French one, which has gave me a great idea, is that moving forward, I'm going to be able to use that English version, and I'm going to ask all of you that are interested to get a version, second-hand or new. You're going to find a link in the video description. I've told the same thing to all the students on the school so that we can follow along in these tutorials together, me with this book and you also with this book. And we're going to be starting straight away with the rice salad, deep diving in that Guide Culinaire for all the explanation. Let's get started. So let's begin our new adventure here using the book. So this is the first time, so sorry if it's a bit long-winded. I'm going to try to be very fast. So what we're going to do, we're going to take the book, and all the students that have bought the book on the community, please get it and open it to the page 461. If you have the book at home, do the same. At the bottom of here, this is the cold preparation section, we have something called simple, composed and mayonnaise salad. This is where Escoffier starts to talk about salad, and he's telling there are 2 main types of salad, the simple salads. That's what we've seen last week, that's why I want to show you this, and the composed salads. And it keeps on going on, of course, on the next page. So here the explanation is there about a single salad. You can have lettuce, you can have a single vegetable, and it's giving you first the types of dressing you can use. It is outlined in the recipes, the list of simple salads that exist. Some of them are just with a lettuce and with celeriac, with a vegetable, and then it goes on to talk about the composed salad, the salade composée, which is for next time. But where is the rice salad? This is the trick of the Guide Culinaire. It is actually located on another page. Now for the missing link with the rice salad, to find it, you're going to find it on page 130, which is dedicated to the hors d'oeuvre. And Escoffier explained the hors d'oeuvre, which is all kinds of crudité, starter, appetizer. And in the middle of it all, you suddenly have something about salad, because it's just mentioning that salads can be made with anything. And one of the things that is used also is rice. So then it's telling you that you can make rice, you can use certain quantities, and it's going to give you here a list of rice salads. And this is where we're going to be concentrating our recipe today. There's 20 recipes. We're going to make 3 of them to make a little salad bar. And if you want after that at home, if you feel like it, you can pick any of these recipes and make them, okay? So let's begin. So if you look at the section on rice salad, you will see that Escoffier is talking about the rice. You have to use a long grain rice. You need to make sure to cook it properly so it doesn't stick. You want something that is nice and has these nice grains like this. So I'm using a jasmine rice. You can use any long rice, but do not use like broken rice or round type of rice, because it's going to become sticky. Proportion, very important. It is clearly laid out. Escoffier says that for any good, well-balanced salad, the amount is very simple. When you make a rice salad, half of the weight of the salad has to be rice. All right? So if you make 100 grams of rice, you need to have 100 grams of garnish. Doesn't matter what the garnish is, doesn't matter what you put in your salad, you need to make sure that half of the weight is rice. The only trick that is not mentioned is that the rice he's talking about is actually cooked rice, because I've done some tests, not the uncooked rice. So when he's talking about half the weight, it is here the amount of cooked rice you use against the amount of garnish. Let's go. Salad number 1 that we're going to have on our salad bar is the Salade Catalane, white onions, long peppers, and a little bit of anchovies. You can skip the anchovies if you don't like them, with the rice of course, and that is going to be mixed with a classic French dressing. Salad number 2, the Salade Provençale, the Provençal style salad. So you're going to find the usual suspect. You got the rice, you got tomatoes, you got garlic, you got the ratatouille, you're going to have some parsley, you're going to have some anchovies, and if you want, you can add some black olives. It's not in the book, but if you want to go a bit further, you can. Now to finish, we're going to have the Salade Nantaise, which is a classic that you find in a lot of French homes, but I'm going to make the recipe a little bit different. So we've got rice, we've got some herbs, we've got some tuna in here, And we're going to be adding here, typically it's only these, but I'm going to be adding eggs in the recipe and tomatoes as we do in France. And I'm also going to be making a mayonnaise instead of the standard dressing. So to begin with, we're going to be cooking the things that needs to be made in advance. The rice, and then I'm going to use 2 eggs and boil them to have boiled eggs. So let's go on the stove and put some water to the boil. So there we have it. I've got my 2 pans, 1 small pan for my eggs. I'm going to be boiling the eggs for about 9 minutes to make hard-boiled eggs, just. And then we have the pan of water for the rice. So you can start with a boiling water. We're going to add a bit of salt in that water for the rice and a bit of vinegar in here. Next, we need to cook our long peppers and our white onion. These are not brown onions, they are specifically white, they are milder and great for salads. Do not use the brown onion, it's not going to yield the same product, they're just too strong. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to preheat my oven here at 240 degrees Celsius, which is very, very hot, because we need to roast this. And we're going to place this into the oven and leave it to go for a good 15 minutes until it's going to be almost charcoals everywhere. And that's what we want, and then we're going to be taking it out. By the time you've prepared all your onions and everything, you preheat your oven, and the water should be boiling. So here, this is for the eggs. So I've got 2 eggs, carefully put them in, and I'm going to count 9 to up to 10 minutes for hard-boiled eggs. The water for the rice is boiling. I'm not washing the rice, I'm just pouring the 300 grams in here, and I'm going to cook this. This jasmine rice takes roughly about 12 minutes to be just at the point. It needs to be slightly al dente, you don't want it mushy at all. The time is done for the eggs. I'm turning the heat off, and I'm going to take them immediately out and put them in a bowl of cold water. And I'm going to leave running water, cold water, to make sure it stops the cooking and it makes it easy for the peeling. My rice is now ready. I'm going to take it off and I'm going to strain it. Now for the rice you don't have to, but for me I like to actually rinse it in cold water to stop the cooking, because you never know, it could potentially continue to cook. So I'm going to put it back into my pan here with a little bit of hot water, not too much, cold water. Strain it back, and that's going to be it. So here's the rice, and you need to leave it to drain because it's very wet at the moment. The most important is that your rice, you see, you have the grains. It's not like a big mush. Now for the Salade Provençale, once the tomatoes have been peeled, we're going to have to saute the tomatoes in a little bit of garlic with an addition of parsley. And we're also separately going to have to saute the aubergine, and we're going to trim, we're going to make them in large cubes and saute them in a little bit of olive oil using that saute pan. So it all happens individually, it's not a ratatouille. So we're going to do the tomatoes and the aubergine separately. Now let's talk about the tomatoes. When you make a salad, a rice salad, or any salad typically, you have to remove the skin. It's going to be an exception with the baby tomatoes that I've got for the rice salad, which is like the home cooking style. But for this other type of salad, typically you need to monder the tomato, and this is the technical term. If the tomatoes are in season, typically you use proper tomatoes. If they're not in season, you fall back onto using tin tomatoes because they're usually quite ripe. So you're going to take them out of the juice, you rinse them a bit, and you can chop them in little squares. The technique for the monder, something we've seen before. We take our tomato, we make a little incision on here, a little cross at the top. We remove the pédoncule, which is the bottom part on here, and that's it. For the monder tomatoes, I'm going to be reusing the water from the eggs because it's not dirty or anything like this. And I've got a bowl of very cold water on the side. What we do, we take the tomato, you plunge it into the boiling water, you can roll it around, and you can count about 20 seconds, something like that. Keep in mind these are tomatoes, they're not in season, so they're not the best. It's not even 20 seconds, you see it's already touching. And I'm plunging this into the cold water. So here we are, cold water. You make sure to clean your hands thoroughly if you work with your hands in here. And you see, without doing anything, with one hand, I'm just removing the skin. And my tomato is now totally peeled. So typically when you monder a tomato, you half it like this. Again, they're not the best tomatoes. You need to remove the seeds. And typically you can just press them in your hand, but if you do this properly, as an example, you can use a little spoon or something like this, or a little tool. You're going to be digging out all of this juice Now for the tomatoes, there's 2 cavities, so make sure you remove everything, and you can take a knife to flatten the whole lot. And here we're gonna have to have just that, you know, it's almost for that concassé, so this kind of cube shape, huh? So you can make these strips first, you turn, and then, you know, you put some, so it doesn't have to be tiny. Something like that, then little bowl. So for our tomatoes, we need to prepare the garlic, and it's in a garlic press. I'm pressing everything, it's just 1 garlic clove, it's just a touch of garlic. And I'm gonna mix this with some olive oil. So a good amount of oil in there, and that's what I'm going to use for the tomato. You can also start chopping the parsley. So the parsley, first a rough chop, a bit small. It doesn't need to be super small. Now for the sauté tomato and aubergine, you're not going to spend much time on the stove. It is a very brief affair. So first I'm using that olive oil on here. Now you coat with oil, it's nice and warm. Tomatoes are going in. Okay, bit of salt, bit of pepper in here, and really, we're not really cooking the tomatoes, a brief saute to release the flavors. Okay. You see these tomatoes are not great, that's what I don't like, they get very mushy very fast compared to good ones, they turn into a puree, so I'm gonna have to be very careful. I'm adding the garlic in here, a little bit of parsley for the color. And we're just going to have a bit of a mixture on here. Okay, so stir things around under 10 seconds or something like this, and then heat off, and we take that out. So as I was saying, you see when you use these tomatoes out of season, they're very hard to start with. When you cook them in a minute, they become an absolute mush. But ideally, as I said, if it's not in season, use canned tomatoes. You're going to get a much better result. And now the aubergine. Now for the aubergine, I've already trimmed the ends on here, and typically you need to get cubes. But because you're at home, you may not want to do this because there's some wastage. So when it's round like this, if you cut it in half and you cut, you're not going to really have cubes. If you want to have cubes, typically you're going to have to go around and you're going to have these offcuts that you may lose, and you go around the aubergine like this to kind of have that squarish kind of look. So I'm just showing you if you want to do it, but again, you lose these kind of bits of skin on here. Even if I keep a little bit, I try to cut as little as I can, and from here it's a big cube, so in half, okay, again here in half, and then we've got some large cubes. Okay, well, the more rectangles, but you see, that's the gist, something like that. The aubergine, same story, plenty of oil, 2 or 3 tablespoons, high heat. And we're not really cooking the aubergine, they're going to be like sponges, they're going to absorb everything. Little bit of salt, same thing here. Little bit of pepper, you can use white pepper if you want. Just like to use that mixed black pepper, they're like white pepper, pink and black ones. And we're going to saute these aubergine just for a few minutes. So you see they start to fall apart, I'm turning the heat off, and I'm going to transfer this into a little bowl immediately. So we are done. The garnish for the Salade Provençale is done. We've got the anchovies already ready. Sauté aubergine. The tomato, I've just noticed a little mistake in the book. It was saying actually quarter tomato. So you can afford having larger chunks of tomato to sauté to avoid that puree effect. But that's done. And let's look at the Catalane garnish, the onions and the peppers. Now, change of scenery. We've got here the Salade Catalane. So Catalonia, by the way, it's on the way to Barcelona. It's the Spanish and French side, La Catalogne in France and the Catalonia in Spain, just about the border. And you got this Spanish influence of salad of things. So what we do here, the peppers, you're gonna go by hand. You're gonna go around. I'm gonna try to remove the skins like this. It's gonna be a little bit difficult, but if they're properly cooked like this, you see, it should come off. So I'm going to do this for all of them. Now, once you've done your best to remove most of the skin, if there's some left, don't worry, it happens, but you're left with the dreaded seeds here, which is always a nightmare. So you can go by hand. What I put them towards one side. I try to cut the pieces that I can use. And then you can put this over a bowl, like I've got here, something like that. And you can go and try to get rid. But sometimes I just put this on the running water. It's just easier. Right, so once you've tried to remove most of the seed and the skin, you put all the flesh on here, and you don't have to be precious about it. We're just going to do a rough chop. And keep in mind that if you can't be bothered making this, you can buy these piquillos ready-made in jars, in brine. If you buy a good quality, it's good enough. So what we're going to do here, we're just going to do a rough chop, as I said. It doesn't have to be really precise. It's not fine dining. It is a rustic type of salad, and I'm going to put everything of this in a bowl. The white onions, very simple. I've already made an incision. You take a knife, you can make an incision over here. You're not going to use this in your salad. And so typically what you do, you try to remove the one outer skin, not too thick. If it's a bit too thick, you have to be careful there. See, just the one leaf. Let me use my hand in here, it's better. And up, I'm going to remove that. Okay, and I'm keeping this. So be careful, it's very slippery. So I've already cut them in half. But it's like when you're doing a classic onion, like a mirepoix. We're going to do some very large cubes. So about 3 cuts. And then we're going, and boom. I'm going to have here, and maybe, you see, try to chop off that bit here. Okay. So the Salade Catalane garnish is ready. Oven roasted white onions and peppers. And now we can move on with the final one, which is the famous salad Nantaise, the tuna salad, where we need to peel the eggs and make our mayonnaise. Now the eggs, we've seen this before, always better or easier to do under running water. I tap my eggs on a hard surface all around, okay? And then if you're underwater, then you can start to detach like this. And if you have a bit of water, and you can use that to help with the peeling. A little tip, always when you're done with your boiled eggs, you keep them in water, always, not just in the dry air, always in water. So all the garnishes are now done. And this is the first thing you should prepare, so the garnishes, and we've got the eggs and everything. And now we have the dressings. So mayonnaise is going to be one. Then we got the olive oil dressing, the standard, and the standard vinaigrette. So mayonnaise, we've been there before. The 1 egg yolk, the teaspoon of mustard on here, the little bit of salt. You can use typically white pepper, but I'm not too fast. I'm using the mixed pepper. And the most important, your eggs at room temperature, your oil as well. But you want to start the emulsification here, the egg yolks with the mustard. And that's making my base. The oil, measure always about 100 ml to 120 ml, like this you don't go over. You start with a little bit of oil. So not too much at first. Okay, start to emulsify, and then when you got your base, doesn't take long. Keeping you on the camera just to show you, see the mayonnaise. And I'm gonna go bit by bit and add some oil. Up, all the oil in here. And then we're gonna add a touch of vinegar to bring some acidity in the mixture. So for a little bit of zing, just a few drops of vinegar in here. And very gently. It's kind of whiten the mayonnaise a little bit. You can use lemon juice instead. And we're done. I'm going to reserve that mayonnaise and then prepare the other dressing. The vinaigrette dressing always the same. So the pinch of salt on here, the pinch of pepper as well. Same thing. You can use white pepper. And for the measurement, we're going to be having 1 tablespoon or 1 measure of vinegar. So I'm using red wine vinegar. You can use white. It's not a problem. I like this old wine vinegar. And most important, when you do that first step, you want to dilute the vinegar with the salt. So you want to dissolve the salt into the vinegar so that you can have a nice taste in your dressing. Okay. And then from here, 1 part vinegar and then 3 parts oil. So this is the one of the olive oil. So I'm gonna go 1, 2, and 3. And that's it. I'm gonna give it a whisk and we're done. So you can do the same with the other one with a standard oil. So sunflower oil, peanut oil, canola oil, whatever you want, vegetable oil, it's up to you. So finally we've got all the garnish. It was a lot of work because I'm demonstrating here 3 salads. And now the next step is interesting, is that famous ratio. So half rice, half garnish. So for each salad I'm gonna be using 200 grams of cooked rice. And here I need to have roughly about 200 grams of garnish. So the tuna, I've got a whole can, I'm going to use all of that. I'm going to just see how much is that with the oil and everything. So roughly speaking, 116 grams of tuna. Okay, so I've got some room before 200 grams. What about the tomatoes? I'm going to leave that little thing on here. Put a few, so these, I didn't peel them, these are the cherry tomatoes. You see, just a few. about 50 grams, something like this. So I'm about 170. You can have a bit more than 200. And then I'm gonna have, of course, the eggs. So to have the whole picture, this is it. I've measured 200 grams, put equivalent ounces of cooked rice. And then I've got my mayonnaise, that's kind of the dressing, and I've got the tuna, the herbs, some eggs, and some tomatoes. So now, let's have a look how it turns out when we dress everything together and what we get. You start with rice, and 1 to 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise, and I'm going to be starting here by mixing that with my rice. Typically, we also add a little bit of vinegar. It can be white vinegar, but to have a little bit of acidity. And I'm using a fork because it's just kind of easier. From here, we can add the tuna. You can put everything. If you don't want that much, it's up to you. We're going to add maybe some tomatoes in here. Next, we're going to add some herbs. So this is a mixed herb. So there's chive, parsley, a bit of tarragon. Same thing here. And boom. You can always add more mayonnaise or a little bit of vinegar if things tend to get a little bit dryish. So the eggs, it's up to you. May add a few more herbs. Maybe a touch of vinegar looks a little bit dry. There's no real measurement. This is why when you use dressing, it's better because it's wetter. See, mayonnaise, it tends to have a bit of a sticky thing. But that's about it. And now for the salade provençale, I've measured actually just all the aubergine and the tomato. Look at this, just about 200 grams. So that's an interesting one. So we've got the rice on here, 200 grams. Remember, I've got that little olive oil dressing. Up. I'm going to put everything in here, so it's much, much wetter than the mayonnaise. But we're going to put everything. I'm not going to bother. Up. And then we're going to mingle the whole thing. We have the anchovies. You don't want to forget, they play an essential role. Some people don't like anchovies, but that little saltiness of the anchovies. And I'm going to add a touch of herbs. That's the leftover herbs that I had, maybe a bit of chives in there. And that's about it. And to finish here, the Salade Catalane. And that really is the last example that shows us that if you follow this ratio Escoffier, half rice, half garnish, and that garnish equaled exactly 200 grams, as if it was meant to be. So I've got a dressing, same as the one before, but with sunflower oil instead of the olive oil that we had in the other one. Okay, so you dress your rice first, very important. And once we've got this, it's just the matter of adding the rest. So surprising this salad, you've got really the roast peppers in here, mixed with white onion. So not a common style of salad you would imagine, but I've tried it before, and trust me, it will take you by surprise, because this was actually one of my favorites because it was so different. You can have some anchovies. I think they're just for decoration, but I'm just going to add some extra one. There's no herbs in that one. It's a really, you can feel the Spanish influence, totally different. So that's it. Now I'm going to arrange everything on a platter. So we're going to recreate the little salad bar thing. And there we have it. This is my super old-fashioned retro Escoffier salad bar style. I've used the dish. It's a bit small, and to cramp a bit of 3 of these salads. And we've got 3 examples. Using the Escoffier method, using the measurement that we've been given, half rice, half garnish, and picking 3 recipes out of 20 recipes that you can make. So remember, with what you've seen now, with the theory, these are some examples. You can make all the other salad that's on there. Some of them use truffle and things, so you surely won't be able to, but that's not a bad start. So this one here, tasting notes, this is the French one. So salade de thon, and this is a tuna salad with the egg, the tomato, plenty of mayonnaise. It's very creamy. I love the tuna. And as for me, the absolute kind of childhood memory. Great for picnic. Really filling. You can have it as a almost like a meal. Not a problem. The second one, this is the one that's going to surprise you the most, is the Salade Catalane. Because I'm sure you didn't have very often a mixture of a rice salad mixed with these roasted long peppers with the white onion. The white onions in that salad are absolutely crazy good. They're really not strong. They're crunchy, slightly. And there's a smokiness that you get from the long pepper that comes afterwards. You got some crunchiness, and you got some flavors of roastiness, like the little burn thing. And the last one, of course, here, I put some anchovies on there. This is the classic Provençal. You could put black olives, I think, on here, but I put the anchovies on the side. But this is a classic. I think that using larger chunks of tomato would work better. But the aubergine, with the dressing, brilliant. But do not miss the anchovy yogurt. I'm starving, sorry. I mean, I've been staring at that salad the whole time. Yeah. But that completes our second episode on our journey on French salad. This was the explanation on how to make rice salad. It was a lot of information to take in, but the good thing, as I said, now we've got the guide culinaire. You're going to be able to read for yourself the pages I gave you, all the information, look at the salad, look at the composition, look at the dressing, and you're going to be able to customize things, change things at home, and make it your way. Now, if you make those, out of these three, tell me which one was your favorite in the comment section. For me, that was the one, which is the middle one, which is the Salade Catalane, because of it being so different. But that's it for the video. I will see you, of course, next time for the last episode of that mini-series where we're going to tackle the most complex world of the salade composée. I'll see you then.